Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for our March webinar. My name is Allie. I'm Director of Communications for Face It Together, and I will be leading today's conversation. I'm also joined by Chantel and Eric, who will introduce themselves shortly. Just want to go over a couple of quick housekeeping items first. So, for those of you who may not know, Face It Together is an addiction wellness nonprofit. We offer professional peer coaching to those impacted by alcohol and other drugs, including loved ones. Um, and we often do that at no cost. So if you'd like to learn more or get connected with one of our peer coaches, you can do that at wefaceit together.org. During today's conversation, please feel free to ask questions at any point using the Q&A button, and you can do so anonymously if you'd like. And then lastly, these webinars are a benefit to our Fit at Work program, which is where we partner with employers to provide our peer coaching as a mental health benefit to employees and also to their family members. So coaching is completely confidential. Any reporting that happens is completely de-identified. So if you're watching this and maybe you've seen our materials in your break room or in your onboarding packet at work, that means that your employer believes in this approach and they want you to be well. So please don't hesitate to reach out if we can be any help for you. So let's kick things off. Today, we're talking all about finding hope after hopelessness, rediscovering the light, which is I think it's coming really at a good time for me personally. We're coming up on, we're creeping into March. Things are starting to get a little brighter, a little lighter. But yeah, I know me and lots of other folks kind of struggle seasonally with some of those darker months. And so I think it'll be a really good topic. I also know it's a very heavy and personal topic. And so before I kick things off to our awesome panelists, I just want to put the plug out there. If you or someone you know needs help now, please feel free to call or text 988. That's the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. That is free and completely confidential. So, again, if you are struggling, please don't hesitate to use that resource. But I thought we could start with some quick introductions. And then, Eric, Chantel, if you both want to reflect on what does rediscovering light mean to you personally? So, Eric, if you want to start.
Sure. Yeah, hi, I'm Eric Olson. I'm Director of Colorado Strategy for Faces Together. I've been with the organization for about 3.5 years. And absolutely love it. I love what we're all about. But as far as rediscovering the light, how appropriate you're doing this right before daylight savings time too, so we get more light. But
I couldn't have timed it better if I planned it, and I definitely did
but
not plan it.
I mean, especially in addiction, there's so much darkness because there's so much, we get so hard on ourselves and we feel like we're never going to find that light. But truly, once you find recovery and you find sustained recovery and you find your support system, uh, I mean, it's like the brightest light ever, and it just opens up your whole pathway, and you get out of that dark cave or tunnel or whatever that darkness is, and it's just amazing. So, if you find yourself where you're in a spot to where you're feeling like things are dark, recovery really truly is that light of hopefulness.
Yes, so true. Chantel?
Hi, I'm Chantel Jarman. I am a former coach for persons struggling with addiction and loved ones, and currently I am starting off new ventures into the business world, and so things are pretty upside down for me,
Hmm.
I would say, in a good way though. Um, and yeah, I really liked what you said, Eric, because there was some things when I was going through these questions that really related to what you said, how dark things can get in addiction. But for me, I think rediscovering the light personally for me was taking a second. And for me, it's very hard to slow down. I'm so going fast all the time. Uh, but taking a second to rediscover who I truly was. Um,
Mm.
Beneath the roles that I play in my daily life. I'm a mom, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a wife, I'm a friend, etc. Who is Chantel beyond that? And what fills me up? Um, that's where, I found rediscovered my light personally was
Mm.
stripping all of that away and remembering that I am a human being and a person first before I am all those things. And that's where I found my passion for wanting to help people amongst you beautiful people. So yeah. like
I
Eric's
love that. Yeah,
things.
and really tapping into that's some work I've done personally too, is tapping into like who am I, right? And how can I tap into that, like the true essence of me, even
Mhm.
while I have all these other roles and responsibilities. That makes total
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, I think we really get caught up in that,
Yeah.
and we forget that sometimes we're primed by all of our experiences from the time we're little kids. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that all of that has a part to play in who we really are, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Heck yeah. Um, So, if if you're both willing, I thought we could maybe share a story or two, whether that's a personal story or if someone with their permission or de-identified, but maybe a story of finding light after a period of kind of that darkness of that hopelessness. Chantel, did you want to go first?
Sure. I think the one that I kind of settled on is very recent for me. So last year, around March, April of last year, I some big things were happening in life. My husband had just sustained, like got to a place in his employment where it was sustained long enough to where we thought, okay, we're good, we're set, right? I'm gonna go ahead and quit my job. I have not been able to stay home with my kids really at all from the time that they were returned to us. That was our thinking. So we thought it would be good for me to get some one-on-one time with the kids. So I quit my job, and about a month after I quit my job, my husband lost his job due
Mm,
to just some unforeseen personal things in the owner of the company's life. And we were all just we were so shocked, I think, at first, but also I had just quit my great job. He just lost his great job. We didn't know how we were going to pay our bills. We, at that point in time, couldn't even get on assistance because things, they have to work themselves out and you have to be completely broke before you can move from one end of the spectrum to the other. And so there was a lot of gray going on, and we didn't know
mm,
how to handle that. Things got brighter when I got my job at Face It Together. There's some light there, but it wasn't really enough to sustain our family and the lifestyle that we had grown into. Our monthly expenses, our rent, kids. We have multiple children. Our needs, all of those things just weren't being met. And so I found myself 2 years into recovery, struggling to meet my basic needs, and things
mm,
got really dark, very, very hopeless. He couldn't find a job. I mean, it was just really a downhill battle. Everything we did just continued to kind of decline. For me, I had to really, really remind myself, you can only do so much. I could only do what I could physically do. And beyond that, everything was out of my control. So I hung in there. I kept doing a good job at work. I kept doing the next right thing in my life and just, praying to my higher power that, things will work out the way they're supposed to. And what ended up being one of the like worst shocking experiences in our early recovery, um, if that hadn't have happened, we wouldn't be moved into this way bigger, more beautiful home in Minnesota and starting our own business. Like, just the sequence of things happening had to happen that way for
mm,
us to be where we are today. If he hadn't lost his job, we would have never pushed forward with growing stronger connections with certain people, or even just asking, would you ever consider X, Y, and Z? Um,
mhm,
we would have been totally comfortable in our life if he didn't lose his job and things didn't go suddenly dark. Does that make sense?
mhm. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And um, I have to say this for the record, even though you know it, Chantel, we all miss you so much. But um, so for those of you watching, be not in doubt. We all miss Chantel. But one of the things I loved that you really bring, Chantel, to like your own personal story, and I've heard you reflect on before, is like those really, really hard times in your life were followed by really, really wonderful times. And so I think that's just one more example of that, where you were able to kind of keep that perspective and remember, like, you know, this is not the end of the story. Like there's more to come and it could be even better. So, um,
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Like without that hopelessness, we wouldn't have had hope that we could do this stuff over here, you know?
mhm.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
Eric, do you have a story you'd be willing to share and just kind of illustrate that journey to light?
Yeah, absolutely. But before I do that, I just wanted to compliment Chantel on that beautiful story. I mean, what a symbolic, literal darkness into lightness, from what
Mhm.
you went through. And a lot of, I can relate to a lot of that things, the bad things that happened in my life, a couple DUIs, I lost my job due to alcohol. And in that moment, you're so distraught and you don't know what's going to happen next and you think it's the end of the world. But then in hindsight, you can look back and it's the best thing that could have ever happened to you because it pushes you out of that comfort zone, right? And then you're like, okay, I gotta figure this out. And it's weird how this life we live in, how things kind of work out like that. So just a beautiful story, Chantel. I'm going to share a story of one of my members. This is one of my highlights. This is one of the things that keep me going in coaching, because this is a story that is not all sunshine and rainbows. There was a lot of darkness, but today things are better. But so I've been with this member for over 2 years now. November was 2 years, and she came to us straight out of a treatment center, for alcohol. Her family was coaching with us, with our in our loved ones program, and so she was kind of coming just to kind of check a box. And so, but did good, had some sustained recovery, white knuckling it, not really utilizing any supports, you know, made it, I think, a few months and then ended up going back in, having a reoccurrence of use and then going back into treatment again for the second time. Came out of that. Um, and did better. This time was a little bit better, but still only. I think she made it to like the 6, 7 month mark, and then she gave back in. It's just life happened. Things happened. Her job, wasn't going as well as she was hoping, and just her kids were being kids. And so then she kind of got back into, there's that roller coaster. She's up, and then she's back down. But something clicked on that second time when she had that reoccurrence, and then she was like, "Enough's enough." She started attending AA more regularly along with her coaching. Would just go to AA and sit there, not really talk, just go there, just to kind of, I think, just to kind of, feel a part of a community. And then, so that was probably, I want to say, the end of 2023. So now fast forward to today. She has 15 months of sobriety. She was
Yay.
leading an AA meeting, not only going, but participating, leading a meeting, and just, some of those times when she would come in for her sessions, she'd be sitting on the chair, and it was just like a rainstorm was over her. You could just see the defeat
Mhm.
in her. She's like, the only thing, she's like, Eric, all I can think about right now is drinking. She would push through and not drink, but like fighting, fighting, fighting. And now she just comes in and, she's got a part-time job as a substitute teacher and things are going great. And like, just a positive, like, from that darkness into that light. And it's just every time. And that's what, because not all of our coaching, stories are success stories. Some of them, have, but these ones are the ones that keep you going. And, this is why what we do, because it gives us as coaches hope and our organization hope that we're actually helping people find that hope in recovery. And, sorry, it's just, I'm getting a little emotional because I get to see her on Monday. So I'm really looking
Oh,
forward to it. We only meet once a month now, but, so it's more
yeah.
like a check-in, but yeah, definitely looking forward to that. But that's what keeps me going in this job and in this career field. But I love it.
That's
That's
amazing.
amazing. Yeah, and it's such a testament too that you stuck with her so long and she stuck with you, that there was that trust there, even though, yeah, there was that roller coaster. Like you were right alongside her, just, yeah, working through it. And oh, that's wonderful to hear she's doing so well.
Right. And that's the thing is like at first she would hide. She tried to play it off like she wasn't drinking. There
Mm,
were signs that, what made me think otherwise. But then she opened up and she was honest about it. And that's all we care
mhm.
about. Like we're not. this isn't our story. We're here to support you. Like, just be
Yeah.
honest with us, and then we can help you get to wherever you need to get to, or at least do our best. So, once
Hmm.
people, are vulnerable and honest with you, I mean, they just have so much more success because in our addiction, in our, we everything's lies. We're lying to everyone, lying to our family members, lying to ourselves, lying to things. So when you start to become honest, it just makes things that much more easier. So, sorry, that was kind of a
For sure.
tangent off of the light, but
No, and I think I think that'll come up later too as we keep talking. Like even just
Yeah,
being honest and open is so important.
I think that's
Um,
also a testament to Face It Together, you guys. I have to say it because Eric, you sometimes were just sitting there with her in that darkness, I'm sure. And
Mhm.
to be able to meet her where she was at is what we struggle to find out in the world. And I think that it's just so great that you guys get to do that, that I got a chance to do that.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think your story really ties in well to my next question, Eric, about like kind of navigating setbacks, especially on the journey to healing. Um, so what role do you think self-compassion, self-forgiveness kind of play into that? Maybe personally or with your members? Like what does that bring up for you?
Well, I mean, personally, like for me, so, in my 20-year struggle, and all the, and the many, many, tries of trying to, stay sober, and then, eventually giving in, whether it was peer pressure or just circumstances, whatever it was, and the guilt I would feel like after that, be like, oh man, I made it so far. Like I made it, I think one time 11 months, and then I, got right back into what I was doing, and it was just like just that guilt. But then, at the end of the day, I had to push through. I'm like, I can sit here and sit in this, or I can move forward and, give myself some grace and be like, it's okay. It's okay. This doesn't have to be my story. My story's not written. I can still write that story, right? So just really
Mhm.
not and not, not worrying about the past. The past is the past. You can't. Some people just get so tired, and I'm guilty of this as well. Like just holding on to that past. Like I'm never going to change. It's never going to happen because literally I tried quitting probably 100 times, and
Mhm.
every single time it always, whether it was a week, a day, 6 months, whatever, I would, try again and then I'd fail. But if I would have kept saying that and that was my story that I'm never going to do it, I'd never have 4.5 years of sobriety. I'd never it's
Mhm.
just once you give yourself some grace and some compassion, be like, hey, you know what? You messed up. Let's get back on track. Let's get back on that bike and let's go again. And then give it another shot. Sometimes it takes a little more tools. I had ended up going through an IOP program, and that's what officially let me hit that reset button and get to where I needed to go. But if I would have just kept on and had the mindset that I'll never do this, I'd never be here today. So it's just, you really got to just be kind to yourself. And the same thing with my
Mhm.
members, when they come in and like, hey man, I messed up. Be like, hey, that's okay. We can move forward, right? Our past does not define us. We can move forward and we can still keep writing our book. So
Love
Mhm.
that.
if that answered it.
Yes. Yes, of course it did. Yeah, Chantel, and you and I have talked about grace before and kind of that self-kindness. But anything else you wanted to share kind of in within this conversation today?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. I mean, that was a big thing, obviously, and I love it that you hit on that. It's about offering that grace. For me, it's easier said than done. And so what it took for me to be able to offer myself grace was even in all my darkness, somebody said, you still shine light on other people. Why aren't you saving some of it for you? And I was like,
Mhm.
what? No, okay, so people can hurt you multiple times or do things that cause something in you, and you'll forgive them. You'll offer empathy, you'll offer compassion and you grace, and you keep giving this to these people over and over and over. If you take a fraction of that, just apply it to yourself.
Mhm.
That's and I had to have it explained to me that way for me to be like, oh, well, I obviously have that to give if I'm giving it to other people. So I love that you
Mhm.
like, said it the way you said it, Eric. It was very great because it is. It's about being kind to ourselves. And if we are unsure that we can do that, just remember how kind we are to others. Some of us alcoholics and addicts, most of us, are probably the most kind people you'll meet at times. So I know we're all capable of it.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and then what about kind of some maybe some more like practical strategies? Because we know this is really hard work. This is really heavy work. It can feel very overwhelming. Um, and you have kind of some go-tos, Chantel, like little reminders that kind of bring you that light if you're willing to share those.
Oh yeah, yeah. So the ones I think that I know you're talking about are all of us. We don't have to be an alcoholic or an addict to have this happen at all. Um, we get caught up in the negative self-talk. Something doesn't go our way, we don't do something in time or the right way, and we kind of rag on ourselves. For me, it was very heightened by the time I was, down in that darkness. And instead of like being able to say, "Oh, Chantel, you're doing okay. You're doing good. You're sober today." I couldn't do that. So I would take an expo marker and I would write myself a message on my mirror. And sometimes the same message stayed there for months. Sometimes there was six messages all around where my face would be. Because when I brush my teeth, I look in the mirror. When I get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night or in the middle of the day, I look at the mirror. I look at the mirror constantly when I'm in and out of my bathroom, helping my kids, whatever it is. And so having any type of message that you would want to say to yourself there where you can see it every day, it really helped get my brain into the pattern of saying that stuff to myself. Today, being able to build myself up internally is a lot easier because I exercised it every time looking at the mirror.
Mhm.
Grounding. I'm big on grounding. For me, it's not just sitting down and, trying to be present right now in this chair. I take my shoes and socks off and I go walk outside. I have to feel that grass on my feet, um, or snow if that's okay with you.
Harder to
Yeah,
do some parts of the year than in others.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Or even, yeah, just going outside on a windy day or a rainy day and letting that element hit you and feel you because it brings your body and your mind back to what's happening right now. Gives you that
Mhm.
second of relief. Some other things that I did want to mention, and I know this is like big stuff, but it's really simple. I think sometimes people they hear the words and they think there's so many parts to it that it's not doable or whatever, but like mindfulness.
Mm.
um, Mindfulness, being present in the moment without judgment, right? So we can be present in what we're doing a lot, but we tend to harp on ourselves all the time. And so just remembering that that mindfulness is without judgment. Um, and then wise mind, right? We're very emotional beings, very emotional, and it's hard to be logical. If we can feel some of that emotion, but use those facts to kind of blend them together, like that was really good for me um to use on a weekly basis.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it even reminds me of what you were saying earlier about like tapping into your true self. And that's some work I've done too, where if I'm really feeling an emotion, I'm like, pause. Allie's the leader. Emotion, will you let me lead? Like, I can appreciate you and not, you know, not ignore it or, try to smother it or anything, but
Not
recognizing
exiling
that, like,
yourself.
yeah, yeah, but like you are still in control,
Yeah.
has been helpful for me too.
That's like parts work. That's what that's called.
Yeah,
Work.
yeah.
Totally.
I
You're
love
integrating
all about parts work.
too. I love it because that's, doesn't matter where you've been, where you're at, where you're going. All of that stuff is so helpful for anybody to continue their growth journey. So
Mhm.
cool.
Eric, anything to kind of add to that list? Maybe some things folks can try.
Just the thing that stuck out with me when you asked that question, and then Chantel kind of touched on it, is just that mindfulness. Like, you
Yeah.
know, life can be hard, right? And then sometimes, when we're in the midst of our addiction, it's so easy that we automatically just, without even thinking, will go for the bottle or smoke some weed or whatever your drug of choice is. But, now in recovery and just thinking things through and just realizing like, hey, I'm having a stressful day or whatever it might be. The kids won't stop yelling, but being mindful and just being and taking that second to stop before you're on autopilot doing whatever you used to do, which was your natural reaction in addiction
Yeah.
because that's how how we would cope with things, right? But now we have to sit there and we kind of have to sit in those feelings and work through them, which is okay. And then, just, once you do that for a while, you get better at it and just really recognizing that, hey, I don't need to go use a substance to get through this. I can get through this. Maybe you go talk to your wife, or maybe you just go for a walk, or maybe do whatever you do to just kind of shut your brain down a little bit. And then, you can get through it. We're stronger than we think we are. When we're in the midst of our addictions, we're so, we're powerless against whatever substance, that we're using to kind of escape everything, right? But then, once we've had some recovery and sobriety, we realize that, hey, we really can do this stuff without reaching for a substance. And the longer you go, the easier it gets. Now, we still have
Mhm.
bad days, definitely, but we're able to work through those days. And like the biggest thing that works for me it's just being mindful, not just going into autopilot and doing whatever. It's just like, hey, thinking it through and being like, just talk. And sometimes you just need to talk yourself through it, like you do. Like, hey, Allie, you're in charge of your emotions, right? Just being like, hey, I can get through this. That sucked, but let's not let it ruin our day. Let's just move forward the best we can. And then, and sometimes you just need to get through the day. Sometimes we
Yeah,
just need to get through the day. So yeah, that's about all I have for that topic.
I like that. I've had to take a nap just to restart my day once. It was crazy, but it worked. I woke up
Yeah,
feeling
I like it. And I think that mindfulness, like, it also opens the door for now, again, all of this is easier said than done. It definitely takes practice. But in a perfect world, that mindfulness opens the door for like, okay, I need help right now. So I can talk to my partner or call, whoever. Or yeah, introduce those other tools just to kind of give you what you need.
I feel like
Um,
in there. Sorry, I don't mean to take over, but
no,
just to
go
like
for it.
go in there because a lot of people don't know this. Like neuroplasticity, that means that your
Mhm.
brain is flexible. It is like a muscle. If you do something once, maybe twice, maybe three times, it gets easier the next time and the next time and the next
Yep.
time. And so it might be really, really hard to start something, to start positive self-talk, to start mindfulness. But once you do it, the second time is going to be easier, and so on and so
Hmm.
forth. That's how we retrain our brains.
Hmm. And giving yourself grace too, because depending on how many years you've been on this earth, your brain is used to doing things in a certain way. So like, yeah, recognizing both sides of that. Um, I'm curious how you both kind of respond to the idea. Chantel, you've shared this in your personal story before, and I'm wondering, Eric, if it kind of resonates for you as a man. Um, there's sometimes this belief that like to be strong means I'm not asking for help, or to ask for help means I'm weak, kind of that mentality. And so I'm wondering if you've both kind of come across that, and then what's your response to that now, maybe? Eric, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and like you said, being a man, like, right, we're supposed to be strong, mighty, um, but the reality is that it's okay to ask for help, like, and in certain areas. Now, am I ever going to go to a grocery store and ask someone, where something is? Of course not, because I have to figure it out myself. But in the big picture, especially with recovery, and there's just that stigma with asking for, especially from a man's perspective, like you can't ask for help. You got to figure it out on your own. But when you do ask for that help and you get that help, it's amazing what it can do. It's just, and it's sad. And it's like I wish we could, and we're trying as an organization based together to try to destigmatize, addiction and recovery in general. But I mean that asking for help piece is so huge because so many people don't ever ask for help, and then they just live this quality of life that's miserable. And then those that do ask for help, they realize and they see the benefits. So it's just, just just get over it and ask for some help, man. It's like easier said than done, like everything on this webinar. But I mean,
Yeah, right.
hey, once you do ask for help, you're not going to regret it because it's just amazing at what just a little bit. Sometimes we don't need a lot of help; we just need a little bit of help. But we got to ask
Mhm.
for that help and get and seek out that help sometimes. So, um, if anyone watching this is like on the edge of like asking for help and think that they can't because they're a man, that's BS. You can do it. Ask for some help, except at the grocery store or
Yeah,
directions.
What
of
direction?
course.
I get the evil eye when my husband won't ask for directions and then I go do it. He's like,
Uh-huh.
Betrayal.
Yeah, totally. Utter betrayal.
What else would you kind of add to that, Chantel, for maybe counteracting that belief?
Yeah, so I I used to think that a lot. It was not it was definitely taught to me. I used to think it was a culture thing. It's not a culture thing. It's my family thing. And I think a lot of families are like that, which is not wrong. It's not wrong, but you can create your own new normal. And that new normal can be whatever you want it to be. And I think, first off, I gotta say, if you're still here, and especially if you're watching this webinar, you are very strong, right?
Mm,
Because just being curious is the first step in learning how to ask for help. Um, and for me, like finding it was weird because once I finally admitted to myself that I couldn't do this alone, and now it's with kind of a lot of things, um, I I actually was so afraid of like that showing that I was weak, but the second I admitted it, I felt so empowered because there were people ready and willing to give me a hand up, not a handout, a hand up. And I
mhm,
like like Eric, what you ended on. It brings me to there's three kinds of problems in this world, right? Three. Somebody shared this with me. Three types of problems. There's a you problem, a me problem, right? There's a me problem. There's a community problem, a problem that's big enough that you need a community to help you solve it. And then there's world problems, right? Where it's going to take an entire world to fix it. So for me today, it helps kind of keep some of my like stressors about politics or whatever those things are. It keeps them to a minimum
mm,
because I remember which ones are world problems, which ones are community problems. Even today with, over 2 years of sobriety and recovery, my recovery is still a community problem. That is something that I
mm,
bring to my community when I can't find the footing at home. That is someplace, I seek outside meetings and fellow, people in recovery for maybe just a peace of mind when I can't stop the noise myself, and just remembering there's me problems, right? If I'm feeling a certain way because somebody said something, that's a me problem. That's
mm,
not a problem, and just
mhm.
kind of remembering that there's different levels of, yeah, of things to ask
That's,
for.
yeah, that's a really interesting way to frame that. I don't know that I've heard that before, so thank you for
Think I heard
sharing.
it in a training. I can't remember which training.
Yeah,
It stuck.
yeah, that's really cool. So I mean, we've been talking about some really big topics tonight. Wrapping up on our questions here, but I did want to maybe offer maybe some support, or if you want to call it advice for maybe the loved ones. So, they're worried for someone in their life, or they want to be helpful, they want to help them find that source of light. What do we want to say to those folks, Chantel?
And this came up when in our talk yesterday, right away, right away. My heart goes out to you. I'm a loved one as well. Just don't take it personally.
Mm,
Whatever it is, whatever's said, whatever's done, don't take it personally. It's so much easier to say it than to do it. But I think, when somebody is hurting, even us as loved ones, when we're hurting, we're so enveloped by that. We aren't consciously thinking of what we're doing to others. It's not until after something is done that we realize, the wreckage. It's not an excuse, but it definitely helped me stop getting my feelings hurt was when I quit taking
mm,
things personally. And then the other thing that I was a long time figuring out, and then becoming a coach and all those things helped me even more with it in helping someone else, anybody else, take great care of you. Like in order to help anybody, you got to make sure you're okay first. And sometimes if you start to feel that that's a selfish thing, just remember self-care isn't selfish. Like that's, I used to
mm,
think that I had to be selfish in my recovery. And then a really good, smart counselor, amazing lady was like, but that's not selfishness, it's self-care, and
mm,
yeah, just, oh, one other thing I did want to say that it's okay to sit with some of those people and not be in fix it mode.
mm, mm.
because I struggle with my sister still to this day, where I do want to jump into fix it mode right away. And sometimes she's able to tell me, and sometimes she isn't, that like, I just need you to listen. I just need
Yep.
you to, so yeah.
Yep. That's a big one for me too. Yeah, you want to help and so you're ready, but then yep, that's maybe it's maybe just not the time. I'm not ready for solutions yet.
Yeah, sometimes we'll jump in and try to fix it, and that person might not know how to communicate healthy, and they don't take any of our ideas or advice. And then we get our feelings hurt because we're over here doing all of this. But
Hmm.
first place, we didn't ask them if they wanted us to help or if they just needed us to listen. So that
Hmm.
was a huge thing I needed to learn on one side and the other side, and I'm still growing.
Yeah, work in progress always.
Yep.
Eric, anything else you'd say from the loved one side?
Well, since I'm not a loved one coach, but I've definitely been hearing, heard a lot of stories in my 3.5 years here and the impact that, loved one support can have. And, from the person I would hurt as a person with addiction, a lot of times, they don't want to seek help or support because they're not the one with the issue, right? But they're still going through a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff, and you can't just talk to anyone about what you're going through because your friends might not get it. Your coworkers might not get it, but a loved one coach will get it because they've been there, done
Mhm.
that. So, like, if someone's watching this and they have a loved one that's suffering with addiction and they don't know where to turn, our loved one program is amazing because it gives you that person that you can talk to work on, communication, boundaries, whatever it might be, or maybe just someone you can talk to that gets it because even in my coaching sessions with persons with addiction, sometimes they just want to talk to someone who gets it. We
Mhm.
don't, maybe they're still, using whatever substance or have, not exactly where they want to be in their recovery, but they like having that person that they can relate with and, kind of help them, talk through some of the struggles that they're going through. So that's my little piece on loved ones. So
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Eric. All right. So I don't see any audience questions tonight, but always feel free to reach out if there's anything else we can answer. I thought we could end on a message of hope. So, Eric, if you want to go first, what's kind of one message of hope you'd like to share with folks who are watching either in real time or the recording later?
it's going to be three words. And that's just recovery is possible. It is possible. We can do it. It's not easy, but it is possible. Like I said, I struggled for 20 years, never thought I'd get out of that vicious cycle ever.
Mm-hmm.
Because I tried many, many, many times and I failed many, many, many times. But with the right determinations, and sometimes things have to happen in your life, that are not positive, like what Chantal was talking about, or, with me, like, losing jobs or, getting in trouble with law enforcement, whatever it might be. Um, yeah, just remember recovery is possible. And I'm going to end with that.
I
I
love
like
it.
that.
Chantel?
I love that, Eric, especially because yeah, you go for 20 years and you don't think it's possible. I meant it every time I said I wanted to quit. Meant it every
Hmm.
time. And it never happened. And today it's happening still. So I love that. Um, I think for me, and you actually, Eric, said this earlier in a few different words, but you said it, man, and I love it. So this my thing I wanted to end on was if we can focus in our darkest times, we will see the brightest light.
Mm.
Period. Just and earlier you touched on that, and I was smiling so big. It was good.
Oh, thank you both so much. This has been such a good conversation. Yeah, not a very easy one to tackle, but yeah, I hope it helps folks and reminds you that there absolutely is light. Um, yeah, recovery is possible, hope is possible. So we will end that for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions for us, or maybe you'd like to meet with a coach, you can visit wefaceit together.org. But truly want to thank you both, Chantel and Eric, and then everyone who watched tonight. We really appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks, guys.